My name is Angelina and I am 27 years old. I remember my 10th birthday like it was yesterday. The day started with a promise of cake and ended with a broken heart when my mother walked out the door and never came back. No note, no goodbye, just emptiness where my mother should have been. That single day changed everything in my life, sending me on a journey through abandonment, grief, and eventually healing. I never expected to see her again until she suddenly reappeared 17 years later. Before I tell you what happened when she suddenly reappeared 15 years later, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to follow my journey to healing and justice. I woke up excited on the morning of my 10th birthday. The sunlight streamed through my butterfly curtains as I bounced out of bed eager to start the day. My mother, Catherine, had promised me a chocolate cake with strawberry filling, my absolute favorite. But something felt off when I found her in the kitchen staring out the window with a distant look in her eyes. "Mom, are you okay?" I asked, tugging at her sleeve. She snapped back to reality and forced a smile. "Of course, birthday girl. Just thinking about all the preparations for your special day." I noticed she was dressed unusually nice for a Tuesday morning, wearing her good pearl earrings and the floral blouse she usually saved for special occasions. "Are we going somewhere fancy for my birthday?" I asked hopefully. "No, sweetheart, but I need to run out to get your cake and a special surprise." She kissed the top of my head. "Be good while I am gone. I will not be too long." I nodded eagerly, wondering what the surprise could be. Maybe the puppy I had been begging for all year. Catherine grabbed her purse and car keys. "Aunt Jessica might stop by to check on you. I asked her to drop off a birthday card." As she headed for the door, I noticed her suitcase in the hallway, a small black roller bag partially hidden behind the coat rack. "Why do you have a suitcase?" I asked, confused. She hesitated for just a second. "Oh, that is for all your birthday presents. They would not fit in shopping bags." Her laugh sounded strange, but I was too excited about presents to question it. "Can I come with you?" I asked. "No, it would ruin the surprise. Just stay here and watch your Saturday morning cartoons. I will be back before you know it." I hugged her goodbye, not knowing it would be our last embrace for 17 years. She held me a little longer than usual, and now I wonder if she was memorizing the feel of her child in her arms. The door closed behind her and I settled on the couch to watch cartoons. 1 hour passed, then 2. By lunchtime my stomach was growling and there was still no sign of my mother. I made myself a peanut butter sandwich, certain she would walk through the door any minute with my chocolate cake. By 3 in the afternoon, worry had replaced excitement. I kept peeking through the front curtains, hoping to see her car pull into the driveway. The phone rang, startling me. "Happy birthday, Angelina." It was Aunt Jessica, my father's sister. "Is your mom there?" "No, she went to get my cake, but she has been gone all day." A pause. "All day? What time did she leave?" "After breakfast, around 9. She said you might come by." "I will be right over, sweetheart. Do not worry." 20 minutes later, Aunt Jessica arrived with her husband, Uncle Brian. I could tell by their faces that something was wrong. Aunt Jessica searched the house while Uncle Brian asked me questions about when Mom left and what she had said. Jessica emerged from my mother's bedroom, her face pale. "Her suitcase is gone. And her passport." She tried to hide this information from me, whispering it to Uncle Brian, but I heard anyway. "Why would she need her passport to get a birthday cake?" I asked, my voice small. Jessica knelt in front of me, her hands gentle on my shoulders. "I am sure there is an explanation, sweetie. Let us call some of her friends." But none of her friends had seen her. By dinner time, my birthday celebration had turned into a tense gathering of worried adults making phone calls. Jessica ordered pizza, trying to salvage some semblance of a birthday for me, but I could not eat. Every time a car passed by outside, I would rush to the window only to be disappointed. "Maybe she got into an accident," I suggested, tears welling in my eyes. "Maybe she is hurt somewhere." Uncle Brian called hospitals while Aunt Jessica finally contacted the police. The officer who came took notes but did not seem alarmed. "No signs of forced entry or struggle," he said, flipping through his notepad. "She took her passport and personal items. Any marital problems, financial issues?" "My husband, her brother, passed away 5 years ago," Jessica explained. "She has been raising Angelina alone since then, but she seemed fine. They were doing okay financially from what I know." "Probably just needed a break," the officer suggested. "It happens more than you would think. She will likely come back in a day or two when she cools off." His dismissive attitude made me angry. "It is my birthday," I protested. "My mom would never miss my birthday. Something bad must have happened to her." The officer patted my head like I was a much younger child. "We will keep an eye out, but there is no evidence of foul play. This looks like a voluntary departure." I went to bed that night in Aunt Jessica's guest room, certain that my mother would be home in the morning. I prayed that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. Maybe she really was planning a huge surprise. But morning came, and the house remained quiet. I went into my mother's bathroom and found her wedding ring sitting on the counter. She had never taken it off, not even after my father died. Seeing it there, deliberately left behind, was when I finally understood that she had chosen to leave us. To leave me. Over the next few days, the terrible truth settled in. My mother had abandoned me on my 10th birthday. The police investigation confirmed she had boarded a flight to Los Angeles that morning. Her bank account had been emptied the week before. "She had this planned," Aunt Jessica said sadly when she thought I could not hear. "Who leaves their child on their birthday? What kind of mother does that?" I moved in with Aunt Jessica and Uncle Brian permanently. They converted their home office into a bedroom for me, painting it purple, my favorite color. They tried their best to create a stable home, but nothing could fill the hole my mother had left. At night, I would cry silently into my pillow, wondering what I had done wrong. Was I not a good enough daughter? Did she never love me at all? The questions haunted me, keeping me awake long into the night. The nightmares started shortly after. Dreams where I was running through empty houses calling for my mother, only to find empty rooms and closed doors. I developed separation anxiety, panicking whenever Aunt Jessica was out of my sight for too long. The fear that everyone I loved would eventually leave me became a constant companion. The next few years were a blur of pain and adjustment. At 11 years old, I started seeing Dr. Matthews, a child psychologist who specialized in abandonment trauma. Every Tuesday after school, I would sit in her office with its soothing blue walls and try to explain feelings I barely understood myself. "It is normal to feel angry, Angelina," Dr. Matthews would say. "You can be angry at your mother." But I was not just angry. I was shattered, confused, and worst of all, I still loved and missed the mother who had abandoned me. No amount of therapy sessions seemed to heal that particular wound. School became a battlefield. Children can be cruelly curious, and the story of my mother's disappearance had spread throughout our small community. "Where is your mom?" a girl named Tiffany asked during lunch one day. "My mom says she ran off with another man." "No, she did not," I snapped back, though I had no idea if it was true or not. "She is on an important business trip." The lies began as a defense mechanism. I created elaborate stories about my mother being an international businesswoman traveling the world for important meetings. In my fabricated reality, she called me every night and sent exotic gifts from faraway places. It was easier than admitting the truth that she had walked out on me without a backward glance. Every day after school, I would race home to check the mail, hoping for a postcard, a letter, anything to prove she still thought about me. The mailbox was always empty of her handwriting. Aunt Jessica became my rock during those difficult years. She never spoke ill of my mother in front of me, though I sometimes overheard her angry conversations with Uncle Brian. How could Catherine do this to her own daughter? And on her birthday? It is unforgivable. Jessica tried her best to create new traditions and happy memories for me. She taught me to bake, took me shopping for clothes, and sat through countless school performances. She became the mother figure I desperately needed, though I was often difficult and ungrateful, testing her love with my behavior. By 14, my pain had transformed into rebellion. I started skipping classes, hanging out with seniors who drove cars and drank beer in parking lots. My grades plummeted, and I dyed my hair black, covering my naturally blonde locks that looked so much like my mother's. "This is not you, Angelina," Aunt Jessica said during one particularly heated argument after I had come home past curfew. "I know you are hurting, but destroying yourself will not bring her back." "You do not know anything about me," I shouted. "You are not my mother." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Jessica's face crumpled, but she did not yell back. Instead, she pulled me into a hug that I initially resisted. "No, I am not your mother," she said softly. "But I love you as if you were my own daughter, and I am not going anywhere no matter how hard you push me away." Her unwavering love slowly began to break through my defenses. By 16, I had settled down somewhat, though my fear of abandonment manifested in my first serious relationship with a boy named Jake. When he broke up with me after 3 months for another girl, the rejection triggered all my old wounds. I spent a week in bed convinced that I was fundamentally unlovable. When I was 17, I found my mother's old journal while helping Aunt Jessica clean out the attic. It was a simple black leather book filled with my mother's elegant handwriting. The entries stopped about a month before she left. August 15th. Met with the lawyer today about Mark's old business affairs. Richard seemed genuinely concerned about the company's remaining debt. He offered to help sort things out. There is something comforting about him. He reminds me of Mark in some ways, but stronger, more decisive. September 3rd. Richard suggested I consider a fresh start in California. The idea is both terrifying and exhilarating. What about Angelina? She deserves better than a mother who feels hollow inside. But could I really leave her? The journal provided a window into my mother's mindset before she abandoned me. The entries revealed a woman unhappy in her life after my father's death, someone who felt trapped and desperate for escape. Richard, whoever he was, had apparently offered her that escape, and she had taken it, leaving me behind like unwanted baggage. My high school graduation should have been a purely joyful occasion. I had worked hard to bring my grades up, even making honor roll in my senior year. As I sat in my cap and gown waiting for my name to be called, I could not help scanning the audience, secretly hoping against all logic that my mother might appear. She did not come, of course. But Aunt Jessica and Uncle Brian cheered loud enough for 3 people when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma. That night at the small celebration they threw for me, I realized something important. Family is not always blood. Sometimes family is the people who stay. I want to study psychology, I announced over graduation cake. I want to understand why people do what they do, maybe help other kids like me someday. Jessica's eyes filled with tears of pride. Your father would be so proud of you, Angelina. And despite everything, I think your mother would be too. I was not sure about that, but it no longer seemed to matter as much. I had been accepted to a university 3 states away, and I was ready to start fresh where no one knew my story, where I would not be the abandoned daughter, but simply Angelina, psychology major and normal college student. College was my chance to reinvent myself, and I seized it with both hands. At 19, I moved into a dormitory at Westlake University, determined to leave my tragic backstory behind. My roommate Zoe was a cheerful art major from Seattle who filled our shared space with colorful paintings and never asked too many personal questions. My parents divorced when I was little, I told her when the inevitable family discussion came up. It was easier than explaining the truth, and close enough that I could maintain the lie without too much effort. I threw myself into my studies, finding comfort in psychological theories and human development research. There was something healing about understanding the science behind human behavior, even my own abandonment issues. During my sophomore year, I met Professor Diana Walsh, who would become my most important mentor. She taught developmental psychology with a focus on childhood trauma, and something about her gentle but straightforward approach resonated with me. The way we respond to childhood wounds shapes our adult lives, she explained during one lecture, but recognizing these patterns is the first step to breaking them. After class one day, I gathered my courage and visited her office hours. To my surprise, I found myself telling her everything about my mother's abandonment. It was the first time I had shared the full story since arriving at college. Professor Walsh listened without judgment. When I finished, she said something that changed my perspective. Your mother's actions reflect her limitations, not your worth. Some people simply lack the capacity for the kind of love children deserve. That year, I also met Michael during a campus debate competition. He was a law student with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that put me at ease. Our relationship developed slowly over coffee study dates and long walks around campus. By the time he kissed me for the first time under the cherry blossoms during Spring Festival, I was already half in love with him. But as our relationship deepened, my old fears resurfaced. The closer he got, the more terrified I became of eventually losing him. When Michael suggested we move in together after dating for 8 months, I panicked. I am not ready, I told him, inventing excuses about needing to focus on my studies. The truth was that living together felt too much like forming a family, something that had only brought me pain. There is something you are not telling me, Michael said after I turned down his offer for the 3rd time. I feel like you are keeping part of yourself locked away. He was right, but I could not bring myself to be vulnerable. Instead, I picked fights over small things, creating distance between us until he finally had enough. I cannot be with someone who will not let me in, he said during our breakup. I love you, Angelina, but you will not let yourself be loved. Losing Michael was painful, but it also served as a wake-up call. I started seeing Dr. Lorraine, a therapist recommended by Professor Walsh. Unlike my childhood therapy, which had focused on coping with immediate trauma, these sessions helped me recognize my self-destructive patterns. You push people away before they can abandon you, Dr. Lorraine observed. It gives you a sense of control, but it also ensures you remain alone. Working with Dr. Lorraine was challenging. She pushed me to confront my deepest fears and examine the beliefs I had formed about relationships. Slowly, I began to understand that not everyone would leave me, that my mother's actions were about her own issues, not my worthiness of love. I graduated with honors and was accepted into a graduate program in clinical psychology. The day I received my acceptance letter, I decided it was time to actively search for my mother. Not for reconciliation, but for closure. I spent hours online searching social media and public records. I hired a private investigator with money I had saved from my campus job. All leads went cold. It was as if Catherine Bennett had vanished completely after leaving me. Sometimes closure has to come from within, Dr. Lorraine suggested after months of fruitless searching. You may never get answers from your mother, but you can still make peace with your past. I took her advice to heart and focused on building my future instead. I accepted a position at a youth counseling center working with children who had experienced family trauma. There was healing in helping others navigate the same painful waters I had been through. At 23, I signed the lease on my first apartment, a small one-bedroom with a tiny balcony where I grew herbs and tomatoes. I created my own traditions, celebrating my accomplishments with small personal rituals. On my birthday, I would bake myself a chocolate cake with strawberry filling, reclaiming the day that had once been so painful. Michael reappeared in my life unexpectedly during a charity event for the counseling center. He had become an assistant district attorney specializing in family law. Seeing him again sent a rush of complicated emotions through me. You look good, Angelina, he said with a warm smile. Happy. I am getting there, I replied honestly. We started slowly, first with coffee as friends, then dinner dates. I was different this time, more open about my fears and my past. When he asked about my childhood, I told him the full truth about my mother's abandonment. Thank you for trusting me with that, he said, taking my hand across the table. By 25, we were engaged. Michael proposed during a weekend trip to the mountains, presenting me with a simple emerald ring that caught the sunlight perfectly. I want to build a family with you, he said. One that stays. I said yes with tears in my eyes, truly believing we could have a future together. But as the wedding planning progressed, my old fears surfaced with surprising intensity. I began having nightmares again, waking up in cold sweats, convinced that everyone would eventually leave me. 3 months before the wedding, I broke off our engagement. I cannot do this, I told Michael through tears. I thought I was ready, but I am not. Unlike before, I did not invent excuses. I explained my fears honestly, telling him that I needed more time to heal before I could fully commit to a lifetime together. Michael was hurt but understanding. I will wait for you to be ready, he said. But you have to actually do the work to get there. Promise me that much. I promised, and for once in my life, I ran toward healing instead of away from pain. I took a 3-month leave from work and embarked on a solo journey to confront my deepest fears. I traveled to places that scared me, met new people, and learned to trust in my own resilience. Each day, I wrote letters to my younger self, offering the comfort and reassurance I had needed at 10 years old. By the time I returned home, something fundamental had shifted within me. I was not completely healed, but I was ready to stop letting my mother's absence define my present and future. At 27, I had created a life I was proud of. My work as a counselor specializing in childhood trauma gave me purpose. I had a small circle of close friends who knew my full story and loved me anyway. And I had finally saved enough with help from Aunt Jessica and Uncle Brian to purchase my first home, a cozy 2-bedroom craftsman with a garden. The day I signed the mortgage papers, Jessica hugged me tight. Your father would be so proud of the woman you have become, she said, her voice thick with emotion. And so am I. Life had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. I was considering reaching out to Michael again, feeling finally ready for a relationship built on trust rather than fear. That was when the call came that would turn everything upside down once more. Is this Angelina Bennett? An unfamiliar male voice asked. Yes, it is. Who is this? My name is Thomas Wright, an attorney representing Catherine Bennett Hodges. Your mother would like to meet with you. Are you available to come to my office tomorrow at 2? The phone nearly slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. My mother Catherine wants to see me. Yes, she has returned to town and has some matters to discuss with you. It is quite important. My first instinct was to refuse. After 17 years of silence, What right did she have to suddenly demand a meeting? I called Aunt Jessica immediately, my heart racing. She has some nerve, Jessica said, anger evident in her voice. After all this time to just expect you to drop everything because she snaps her fingers. I am not going, I said firmly, then hesitated. Am I? Jessica was quiet for a moment. Maybe this is your chance for closure, sweetheart. The answers you have been looking for all these years. I will go with you if you want. I spent the night tossing and turning, alternating between rage and curiosity. By morning, I had decided to meet with her not for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. I called the lawyer back and agreed to the meeting, but insisted that Aunt Jessica accompany me. The law office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and chrome. Jessica squeezed my hand in the elevator, her presence a steady comfort. Whatever happens in there, remember who raised you, she whispered. Remember who stayed. The conference room was tastefully decorated with a large mahogany table and leather chairs, and there, sitting primly at the far end, was my mother. 17 years had changed her, of course. Her once golden blonde hair was now perfectly highlighted and cut into a sleek bob. Fine lines crinkled around her eyes, but she was still beautiful in a polished, expensive way. She wore a designer suit and diamond earrings that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Angelina, she said, her voice exactly as I remembered it. You look well. No apology, no tears, no explanation for abandoning her 10-year-old daughter. Just, you look well, as if she had seen me last month instead of 17 years ago. Catherine, I replied coldly, deliberately, not calling her Mom. That title belonged to Jessica now in all the ways that mattered. The lawyer, Mr. Wright, cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should get to the matter at hand. Yes, let us, Catherine said smoothly. I assume you are wondering why I wanted to meet after all this time. The thought crossed my mind, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Catherine's expression remained impassive. I have been living in California for the past 17 years. I remarried shortly after relocating. My husband, Richard Hodges, passed away 6 months ago. The name Richard struck me immediately, the man mentioned in her journal all those years ago. So she had run off with my father's former business partner after all. I am sorry for your loss, I said automatically, though I felt nothing. Thank you. Richard was a good man. She glanced at her lawyer, who handed her a document. The thing is, Richard made some unusual provisions in his will. He left a significant portion of his estate to you. Whatever I had been expecting, it was not this. To me, I never even met the man. Richard knew your father years ago. They were business partners before Mark died. Richard always felt guilty about certain things. This was his way of making amends, I suppose. The lawyer interjected. Mr. Hodges left approximately $3.5 million in a trust for Angelina Bennett. The funds are to be transferred upon her 30th birthday or immediately if certain conditions are met. I sat back stunned. $3.5 million from a man I had never met? Something did not add up. What conditions? Jessica asked sharply. Mr. Wright looked uncomfortable. The funds are to be released immediately if Ms. Bennett reconciles with her mother, and they maintain a relationship for at least 6 months. Catherine leaned forward. Richard wanted us to be a family again. He felt responsible for what happened between us. The pieces suddenly clicked together. You are not here because you missed me or wanted to apologize. You are here because you want the money. Do not be dramatic, Angelina. Of course I missed you, but Richard left me in a difficult financial position. Most of his assets were tied up in the company, which is struggling. This trust is quite substantial. So you want me to pretend we have reconciled so you can access my inheritance. Catherine had the grace to look slightly ashamed. I am contesting the will. I believe I deserve a portion of that trust. I was his wife for 16 years. Let me get this straight, I said, anger building. You abandoned me on my birthday, never contacted me once in 17 years, and now you want me to either share my inheritance with you or pretend we have a relationship so you can access it. Are you serious? You have no idea what my life has been like, Catherine said defensively. I had my reasons for leaving. It was a difficult time. Difficult. I was 10 years old. Do you have any idea what you did to me? The years of therapy, the nightmares, the feeling that I was somehow unlovable because my own mother walked out on me. Catherine's expression hardened. I am not here to discuss the past. I am here to discuss Richard's estate. My lawyer believes we can reach a reasonable settlement. I looked at this stranger who had given birth to me, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. There was no remorse in her eyes, no maternal love, not even basic human empathy. "No," I said simply. "No what?" "No, I will not give you a cent of that money. No, I will not pretend to reconcile with you. No to all of it." Catherine's polished facade cracked slightly. "You would rather fight this in court. It will get messy, Angelina. Things might come out that you would prefer to keep private." "Are you threatening me?" I asked in disbelief. "I am stating facts. Court battles are unpleasant for everyone." I stood up, shaking with anger and a strange sense of liberation. "Then I will see you in court." As Jessica and I turned to leave, Catherine called after me. "By the way, you have two half-siblings, a brother and a sister. I thought you might want to know." The revelation that my mother had created a whole new family while abandoning me was the final blow. I walked out without looking back, tears streaming down my face. In the elevator, Jessica held me as I broke down. "She does not even care what she did to me," I sobbed. "All she wants is the money." "Then we will fight her," Jessica said firmly. "And we will win." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal consultations and emotional processing. I retained Sarah Johnson, a lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes. During our first meeting, I laid out everything that had happened. "Your mother has no legal claim to your inheritance," Sarah assured me. "The will was very clear, but she might try to paint you as mentally unstable or otherwise unfit to manage such a large sum." "She abandoned me on my 10th birthday," I said. "How am I the unfit one?" "We need to gather evidence of the abandonment and its premeditation," Sarah explained. "Any documents from that time, testimonies from people who witnessed the aftermath, proof that she never attempted contact in 17 years. Jessica became my strongest advocate, digging through old papers and contacting family friends who had been around when my mother left. She found the police report from the day Catherine disappeared, and statements from neighbors who had seen her loading her suitcase into the car that morning. Most damning of all, Jessica found a letter my mother had written to her own sister a month before she left, which had somehow ended up in our family papers. "I cannot bear this life anymore," the letter read. "Richard has offered me a fresh start in California. I know what people will think if I leave Angelina, but Jessica has always loved her like a daughter. She will be better off with her aunt than with a mother who feels nothing but emptiness inside." "She planned it all along," I said, staring at the letter. "She never even considered taking me with her." Sarah hired a private investigator to look into Catherine's life since leaving. What he uncovered was shocking. Catherine had not only abandoned me, but had a pattern of leaving others behind as well. "Your mother was married briefly before she met your father," Sarah explained. "She had a son who would be about 35 now. She left him with his father when he was 4 years old." The revelation that I had an older half-brother who had also been abandoned stunned me. "Did she ever contact him?" "No. And there is more. The two half-siblings she mentioned, after she married Richard Hodges, she had 2 children with him. According to our investigation, she was largely absent from their lives as well, often taking extended trips to Europe while leaving them with nannies. The pattern was clear. My mother was fundamentally incapable of maternal attachment, leaving a trail of damaged children in her wake. The investigator also uncovered evidence that Catherine had been siphoning money from my college fund in the months before she left, nearly $20,000 that should have been set aside for my education. "She did not just abandon you emotionally," Sarah said. "She stole from you as well." With Sarah's help, I located my half-siblings. Jason, my older half-brother, was now a contractor in Oregon with a family of his own. Emma and Andrew, my younger half-siblings, were 20 and 18, both in college on the West Coast. The first phone call with Jason was emotional for both of us. "I never knew she had another child," he said. "She never mentioned you." "She never mentioned you either," I replied. "I had no idea I had a brother until last week." We shared our stories of abandonment, finding painful similarities in our experiences. Jason had struggled with trust issues his entire life, just as I had. "It took me years of therapy to realize her leaving had nothing to do with me," he said. "It was all about her inability to connect, to care about anyone but herself." Meeting Emma and Andrew was equally revealing. They had grown up materially wealthy but emotionally neglected. Catherine had been physically present but emotionally absent frequently, leaving them for months at a time with staff while she traveled with Richard. "She was like a stranger who lived in our house," Emma explained during our first video call. "Dad was the one who raised us, really. Mom was just someone who showed up occasionally to criticize our clothes or grades. Together, the four of us built a case showing Catherine's pattern of maternal neglect and abandonment. We gathered documentation, wrote statements, and prepared to testify against the woman who had brought us into the world only to leave us behind in various ways. While building the legal case, I began receiving anonymous threatening messages. The first arrived by email: "Drop the lawsuit or your clients at the counseling center will learn about your unstable family history." Others followed, escalating in intensity. My car was vandalized one night, the word "greedy" scratched into the driver's door. The security camera at my house captured a glimpse of a woman in a hooded jacket, but the image was too blurry for identification. "It is her," Jessica said when I showed her the footage. "She is trying to intimidate you into giving up." I refused to be scared off. If anything, the attempts at intimidation strengthened my resolve to see this through. During this difficult time, I reconnected with Michael. He had heard about the case through mutual acquaintances and reached out to offer support. "I work for the district attorney now," he said over coffee. "While this is a civil case, I might be able to help with the harassment angle. Those threats could constitute criminal intimidation." His support meant everything to me. Gradually, we began rebuilding our relationship on stronger foundations. This time, I was honest about my fears, but refused to let them control my actions. "I am still scared," I admitted one night as we sat on my porch swing. "Not just of the lawsuit, but of us, of trying again." "What is different this time?" he asked. I thought about it carefully. "I am not running from my past anymore. I am facing it head on, and I know now that not everyone leaves." He took my hand and I did not pull away. "I am not going anywhere, Angelina. Not unless you want me to." For the first time, I truly believed him. The courtroom was packed on the first day of the hearing. Catherine sat at one table with her expensive attorney, looking confident in another designer suit. My team sat at the opposite table: Sarah Johnson, Aunt Jessica, and me. My half-siblings were all present, sitting in the gallery behind me in a show of solidarity. Michael sat with them, having taken the day off work to support me. Catherine's attorney, Maxwell Price, was known for aggressive tactics. In his opening statement, he painted Catherine as a victim of circumstance who had been forced to leave an untenable situation. Ms. Bennett Hodges made the painful decision to leave her daughter in the capable care of relatives when her mental health was at risk, Price claimed. She suffered from undiagnosed depression following her husband's death and felt unable to properly care for a child in that state. The narrative was carefully crafted to generate sympathy, but it was built on lies. Catherine had never sought treatment for depression, never reached out for help with childcare, and never once attempted to contact me after leaving. Sarah's opening statement was clear and devastating in its simplicity. "This case is about a pattern of calculated abandonment and current financial opportunism." Catherine Bennett walked out on her 10-year-old daughter on the child's birthday after planning her escape for months. She remained completely absent for 17 years, only to reappear when there was money to be claimed. This is not about reconciliation. This is about greed. As the hearing progressed, witnesses were called to testify. The police officer who had taken the missing persons report 17 years ago confirmed that all evidence pointed to a voluntary departure. My childhood therapist testified about the severe emotional trauma I had suffered as a result of the abandonment. Aunt Jessica's testimony was particularly powerful. She described finding me alone in the house on my birthday, the gradual realization that Catherine had fled, and the years of helping me cope with nightmares, anxiety, and abandonment issues. "She left her wedding ring on the bathroom counter," Jessica said, her voice breaking slightly. "Who does that to their child? Who walks out on their daughter's birthday without even a note of explanation?" When it was my turn to testify, I spoke directly and honestly about the impact my mother's abandonment had on my life. I described the birthday wait that never ended, the years of therapy, the self-destructive behaviors, and the ongoing struggle to form healthy attachments. "I became a counselor for traumatized children because I understand their pain firsthand," I explained. "I know what it feels like to believe you are fundamentally unlovable, that people will always leave you. I have spent my entire adult life trying to heal from what my mother did to me." Throughout my testimony, Catherine's face remained impassive, showing no remorse or emotion. Her coldness was more damning than any evidence we presented. When Jason took the stand, he revealed his own abandonment story. "I was 4 years old when she left me with my father. She said she was going to the store and never came back." Sound familiar? It is exactly what she did to Angelina 6 years later. Emma and Andrew's testimonies painted a picture of emotional neglect even when Catherine was physically present. She was more interested in social status than in being our mother, Emma explained. When Dad died, she seemed more concerned about the financial implications than about comforting us. The most dramatic moment came when Catherine's current stepchildren, Richard's children from his first marriage, surprised everyone by appearing to testify. They described Catherine's manipulation of their father, her lavish spending, and her complete disinterest in family bonds. "She married our father for his money," testified Richard's daughter Caroline. "When he was diagnosed with cancer last year, she was already meeting with financial advisors about her post-widow life while he was still fighting for his." Catherine finally took the stand on the third day of the hearing. Under Sarah's methodical cross-examination, her carefully constructed narrative began to crumble. "Ms. Bennett, you claim you left your daughter because of depression following your husband's death, correct?" Sarah asked. "Yes, I was in a very dark place," Catherine replied, her voice artificially vulnerable. "Yet your husband died when Angelina was 5 and you left when she was 10. That is a 5-year gap. Did your depression only become unbearable on your daughter's birthday?" Catherine shifted uncomfortably. "It was a culmination of years of struggle." "Is that why you emptied your bank account the week before leaving? Why you took your passport? Why you wrote to your sister a month earlier about your plans to start fresh in California with Richard Hodges? That sounds less like a mental health crisis and more like premeditated abandonment." As Sarah presented document after document contradicting Catherine's claims, the courtroom watched her composure crack. When confronted with the letter to her sister, Catherine's face flushed with anger. "You had no right to that letter," she snapped. "So you do not deny writing it," Sarah pressed. "I was unhappy. Is that such a crime I deserved a chance at happiness? At the expense of your 10-year-old daughter's well-being?" Catherine's mask finally slipped completely. "She had Jessica. I knew she would be fine. Why should I have sacrificed my entire life? Being a mother was never what I wanted anyway." The courtroom fell silent at this admission. The judge, who had been taking notes throughout, looked up sharply. "Never what you wanted," Sarah repeated quietly. "Yet you went on to have 2 more children with Mr. Hodges." Catherine realized her mistake too late. "That was different. Richard wanted children and we had help nannies. So it was not motherhood you objected to, just mothering Angelina specifically." As Catherine struggled to backpedal, Sarah introduced the evidence of the money taken from my college fund. "You did not just abandon your daughter emotionally, you stole her educational future as well, did you not?" By the end of her testimony, Catherine's carefully constructed image was in shambles. Even her own attorney looked uncomfortable. Just before closing arguments, Catherine approached me during a recessed desperation clear in her eyes. "We could still settle this," she said quietly. "50-50 split of the inheritance. This has gone far enough." I looked at the woman who had given birth to me, who had tucked me in at night for 10 years, who had then walked away without a backward glance. In that moment, I felt something unexpected: pity. "This was never about the money for me," I told her. "This was about the truth finally coming out, about understanding why my mother could leave me so easily." "I am sorry if I hurt you," she said, but the words sounded rehearsed, empty. "No, you are not. You are sorry you got caught. You are sorry your plan to get the money failed. But you have never been sorry for what you did to me or to Jason or to any of your children." I walked away feeling lighter than I had in years. The judge's ruling came the following day. She awarded me the full inheritance with no provisions requiring contact with Catherine. Furthermore, she ordered Catherine to repay the money taken from my college fund with interest. The court finds that Catherine Bennett Hodges abandoned her minor child with premeditation and has shown no genuine remorse for her actions, the judge stated. Her attempt to access funds clearly intended for her abandoned daughter shows a troubling pattern of self-interest at the expense of her children's well-being. As we left the courthouse, reporters were waiting outside. The case had attracted local media attention, with headlines focusing on the dramatic courtroom revelations. Catherine slipped out a side entrance, avoiding the cameras. "How do you feel about the ruling?" a reporter called out to me. I thought carefully before answering. Today was not about winning or losing. It was about truth and accountability. Some wounds never fully heal, but at least now I can move forward with clarity about my past. The months following the court case brought unexpected healing. With the inheritance from Richard Hodges, I established a foundation for children affected by parental abandonment, providing therapy services and educational support. I named it the Phoenix Foundation, representing rising from the ashes of childhood trauma. I donated half of the inheritance to various children's charities, keeping enough to secure my future, but ensuring the money would help others who had experienced similar pain. The media coverage of the case had an unexpected benefit. It connected me with other adult children of abandonment. I started a support group that met monthly, creating a safe space for sharing stories and healing strategies. My relationship with my half-siblings deepened into genuine family bonds. Jason and his wife invited me to Oregon for Christmas, where I met my niece and nephew for the first time. Emma and Andrew spent their spring break at my house, and we discovered shared interests despite our different upbringings. "It is strange," Emma said one evening as we sat on my porch swing. "Mother's abandonment was terrible, but it brought the four of us together. We would never have known each other otherwise." 2 months after the trial, Catherine made one last attempt to contact me. She appeared at my door unannounced, looking less polished than before the designer clothes replaced with a simple blouse and slacks. "I thought we should talk," she said, "now that the legal matters are settled." "What is there to say after all this time?" I asked, not inviting her in. "I want you to understand why I left. I was suffocating in that life and motherhood. I was not cut out for it. It was not about you, it was about me." I studied her face, looking for any sign of the mother I had once loved, but saw only a stranger. "That explanation might make you feel better, but it does nothing for me. A mother does not walk out on her child because motherhood is challenging. That is not how love works." "I did love you in my way," she insisted. "Your way was not enough, and it is too late now. I have a family, people who chose to love me and stay even when it was difficult. I do not need you anymore." She looked genuinely surprised, as if she had expected forgiveness simply because she had asked for it. "Will I ever see you again?" "I do not know," I answered honestly. "Right now I cannot imagine wanting that. Maybe someday, but not today." As she turned to leave, I felt no anger, no pain, just a profound sense of closure. The hold she had over my life for so many years was finally broken. Michael and I continued rebuilding our relationship with a new foundation of trust and openness. 6 months after the trial, he proposed again, this time during a quiet dinner at home. "I know we have been down this road before," he said, presenting a simple ring with a small diamond. "But I believe in us this time. I believe in you." I said yes without hesitation, the fear that had once paralyzed me, now replaced with cautious hope. We planned a small wedding with only our closest friends and family. Aunt Jessica and Uncle Brian were central to the celebration. "I always knew you would find your way," Jessica told me the night before the wedding. "Even in your darkest times, your strength was always there, waiting to emerge." "I would not have survived without you," I said, hugging her tightly. "You chose to be my mother when my biological one walked away. That choice made all the difference." On my wedding day, surrounded by people who had chosen to love me through all my broken pieces, I realized something profound. Family was not determined by blood or biology, but by the daily choice to stay, to support, to love, even when it was difficult. I had spent so many years defining myself by my mother's abandonment, seeing myself as the girl who was left behind. Now I understood that I was so much more than that. I was Angelina, wife, counselor, friend, sister, advocate. The abandoned child was part of my story, but it was no longer the whole story. As Michael and I spoke our vows, promising to choose each other every day, I felt the last pieces of my heart healing. The 10-year-old girl waiting by the window for her mother to return would always be part of me, but she no longer controlled my future. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after someone important walked away? The journey through abandonment to healing is different for everyone, but sharing our stories helps us feel less alone. If my story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to follow more journeys of healing and resilience. Comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and share this with someone who might need to hear that they can find wholeness even after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, the family that matters most is the one that chooses to stay.